The town hall meeting had been scheduled for 7 p.m., but by 6:15 every seat was taken. People stood along the walls and crowded the doorway. The parking lot had overflowed into the church lot next door. Everyone in Ridgeline County knew what the meeting was about. The water was running out, or more precisely, the water had been sold. 6 months earlier, a company called Trident Resource Management had purchased the county's municipal water utility. The deal had been approved by the county commission in a closed session. No public vote. No public comment period. The county administrator called it a public-private partnership. The company called it an investment in infrastructure modernization. The farmers called it something else entirely. But nobody was talking about the farmers tonight. The meeting was about Trident's new rate structure, a 40% increase for residential customers effective the 1st of the month. The room was full of homeowners and small business people. The farmers had already dealt with their problem 3 months ago, quietly, with almost no help from anyone. One farmer in particular. His name was Walter Briggs. He was 71 years old. His family had farmed 280 acres along the eastern ridge since 1928. He wasn't at the town hall meeting. He was at home sitting on his porch watching the sun go down behind the barn. But the story of what he had done 3 months earlier was the reason the meeting was happening at all. The trouble began the previous summer. Ridgeline County sat in a region that depended on groundwater. The aquifer beneath the county supplied most of the drinking water, irrigation water, and livestock water for 18,000 people and several thousand acres of farmland. For decades, the system had worked. Wells produced. Rain recharged. The water table held steady. Then Trident arrived. The company had been acquiring water utilities across the rural Midwest for 5 years. Their strategy was simple. Buy aging water infrastructure from cash-strapped counties. Upgrade the systems, raise the rates. Sell the surplus to industrial customers in neighboring regions. In Ridgeline County, the surplus meant groundwater. Trident drilled 4 new high-capacity extraction wells within the first 2 months of ownership. The wells ran 24 hours a day, pulling water from the same aquifer that fed every farm, every home, and every livestock operation in the county. Within 3 months, water levels in private wells began to drop. Walter's well dropped 8 feet by August. His neighbor lost water pressure entirely. 2 dairy farms on the south side of the county had to truck water in from 40 miles away. Walter went to the county commission. He brought data. He showed them well depth records going back 30 years. He showed them the decline curves since Trident's extraction wells went online. He asked the commission to enforce the county's groundwater protection ordinance, which limited extraction rates and required monitoring. The county administrator, a man named Glenn Howard, listened politely. Then he explained that the ordinance had been amended as part of the Trident acquisition agreement. The new language exempted licensed municipal providers from extraction limits. Walter stared at him. "You gave them permission to drain the aquifer." Howard folded his hands. "We gave them permission to manage the water supply, Mr. Prudy." "Briggs, there's a difference." Walter left the meeting without another word. He called a lawyer the next day. Her name was Sandra Cole. She specialized in water rights and natural resource law. She drove out to the farm and walked the property with Walter for 2 hours. Sandra reviewed the county ordinance, the Trident acquisition agreement, and the state's groundwater statutes. The news wasn't good. The amended ordinance gave Trident broad extraction authority. The state statutes prioritized licensed municipal providers over private agricultural users, and Trident's lawyers had drafted the acquisition agreement carefully. Very carefully. "Walter," she said, sitting at his kitchen table, "I won't lie to you. Under current law, they have the right to pump." Walter nodded. He had expected that. He reached across the table and pulled a rolled-up piece of paper from a drawer. It was old, not fragile, but clearly decades old. A hand-drawn diagram with measurements written in pencil along the edges. He unrolled it and set it flat on the table. Sandra leaned forward. It was a diagram of a well, not a modern drilled well with a steel casing and electric pump. An old well, stone-lined, hand-dug. The measurements indicated a depth of 47 feet and a diameter of 4 feet. Walter tapped the diagram. My grandfather dug this well in 1931. He drew this diagram himself. He pointed to a notation in the corner. It fed the house, the barn, and the livestock for 22 years before the county put in the municipal system in 1953. Sandra looked at him. And where is this well now? Walter pointed out the window. Under the concrete slab behind the barn. He paused. My father sealed it in 1954 when we connected to county water, poured a concrete cap over it, and forgot about it. Sandra studied the diagram for a long moment. Walter, she said carefully, if that well still produces water, it might not be connected to the same aquifer zone that Trident is pumping from. Walter nodded. I know. Sandra looked at him. How do you know? Walter pulled another paper from the drawer. A geological survey of the Eastern Ridge conducted by the state in 1962 as part of a regional water assessment. He unfolded it beside the well diagram. The survey mapped 2 distinct aquifer layers beneath the property. The upper aquifer, which fed the county system and Trident's new wells, sat at roughly 120 feet. The lower aquifer, older and deeper, sat at 200 feet. But the Eastern Ridge was different. The terrain lifted the deeper aquifer closer to the surface. At the Briggs farm, the lower aquifer was accessible at just 45 to 50 feet, exactly where his grandfather had dug the well. Sandra read the geological survey twice. She set it down slowly. This well might be drawing from a completely separate water source. Walter nodded again. My grandfather always said the water from that well tasted different from the county water. He looked out the window. Colder, keener. He said it came from deeper down. Sandra sat back in her chair. Walter, if we can prove this well accesses an independent aquifer that isn't part of the county's licensed water system, Trident has no claim to it. She tapped the state groundwater statute. Private wells drawing from non-municipal aquifer sources are protected under the state's prior appropriation doctrine. Your grandfather established the right in 1931. That predates Trident, the county system, and the amended ordinance. Walter stood up. Then I guess we better open that well. The concrete cap took 2 days to remove. Walter hired a local excavator who brought a small jackhammer and a loader. They broke through the slab on a Thursday morning. Beneath the concrete, the original stone lining of the well was intact. The stones were fitted tightly, dry-stacked the way wells were built before modern materials. Some had a faint green tinge from decades of moisture. Walter lowered a measuring tape. The water level sat at 31 feet. The well had been sealed for 70 years and the water had never left. Sandra arranged for a hydrogeologist from the state university to test the water and assess the source. The results came back in 9 days. The water from Walter's well was chemically distinct from the upper aquifer that supplied the county system. Different mineral composition, different temperature profile, different isotopic signature. The hydrogeologist confirmed it in writing. The Briggs well draws from a confined aquifer layer that is geologically separate from the water source utilized by the county municipal system. Sandra filed a formal declaration of prior appropriation with the State Water Resources Office. She attached the 1931 well diagram, the 1962 geological survey, and the university hydrogeologist's report. The filing established Walter's legal right to use the well under prior appropriation, predating every other claim in the county by at least 22 years. Trident's lawyers responded within a week. They challenged the filing. They argued that all groundwater in the county fell under their licensed extraction authority. They sent a cease and desist letter demanding Walter reseal the well. Sandra sent back a 3-page response. She attached the hydrogeologist's report proving the aquifer was separate. She cited the state statute protecting prior appropriation rights for independent water sources, and she noted that Walter's grandfather had established the well 23 years before the county water system even existed. Trident's legal team requested a hearing before the State Water Resources Board. The hearing was held 5 weeks later in the state capital. Walter drove 3 hours to attend. He brought the well diagram, the geological survey, and a mason jar filled with water from the well. The hearing officer reviewed the evidence for 40 minutes. Trident's attorney argued that all subsurface water in the county should be managed under a unified framework. The hearing officer asked one question: "Can you demonstrate that your client's extraction wells access the same aquifer as Mr. Briggs's well?" Trident's attorney paused. He looked at his colleagues. "We believe all groundwater in the region is hydrologically connected," he said. The hearing officer held up the university report. "This analysis says otherwise." The ruling took less than 10 minutes. The board recognized Walter's prior appropriation claim. The well was legally protected. Trident had no authority over it. Walter drove home that afternoon with the mason jar of well water sitting on the passenger seat, the cap still screwed tight. Word spread through the county within days. Other farmers along the eastern ridge began checking their own records. 3 families found documentation of old sealed wells on their properties. 2 of them accessed the same deep aquifer. Sandra filed appropriation claims for each. Within 2 months, 7 farms along the ridge had independent water sources that Trident couldn't touch. The CEO of Trident, a man named Philip Kessler, gave an interview to a regional business journal. He called the situation a regulatory loophole. He said the company was committed to working with the community and expected the issue to be resolved through legislative channels. A reporter from the county paper drove out to Walter's farm. She found him in the barn replacing a water line that now ran from the old well to the cattle trough. She asked him what he thought about the CEO's comments. Walter tightened a fitting with a pipe wrench. He didn't look up. "He can call it whatever he wants," he said. The reporter asked another question. "How did you know the well would still work after 70 years? Walter set the wrench down. He looked at her. "I didn't," he said. He wiped his hands on his pants. "But my grandfather dug 47 feet through solid rock by hand." He glanced toward the well outside the barn door. "I figured the least I could do was take the concrete off the top." The reporter smiled. "One more question. Were you ever worried Trident would find a way to claim your water?" Walter picked up the wrench again. He turned back to the pipe fitting. "They bought the county's water," he said quietly. He gave the fitting one final turn, but they didn't buy the rain that fell here 1,000 years ago. The well produced clean water through the rest of the summer and into the fall. Walter's cattle drank from it. His garden grew. The water table in his well never dropped more than 2 feet, even during the driest weeks of August, because the deep aquifer recharged from a source that no extraction well could reach. And the hand-drawn diagram from 1931 stayed pinned to the wall above his kitchen table, right next to a photograph of his grandfather standing beside the well the year he finished digging it.